Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our August webinar, 5 Tips to Transition into the School Year. I'm Johanna Dunlevy, the Wellness and Marketing Manager with Employee and Family Resources. And I'm very excited today to be co-presenting with Steve Arneson. Steve, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey guys, Steve Arneson. I am a retired school counselor, 36 years in education, father of 3 adult women, and in my 5th year at EFR, so I'm happy to join you, Johanna.
Yeah, well, this is such an important topic because as we kind of round out the month of August, I think a lot of families are transitioning, some for the first time because they have kids just going into school, and then some they're just, making that annual transition, which can be really hard. So one thing Steve and I thought could be helpful is if anyone here today has kids starting the school year, next week or later this month, if you could just put in the chat the ages of your kids or the grades they're in. That way, if we have kind of an overwhelming number of elementary or middle or high school, Steve can kind of draw on some of his experiences since he has worked with all ages of kids. I came across this picture. That little girl is me, and that is my friend Donnie, and this was 1987, my first day of kindergarten. So it's hard to believe that was 35 years ago. But Donnie shared this photo with me just a couple of months ago for my birthday, and I had never seen it, and it just brought back so many memories. And I remember the lunchbox. I remember being nervous to get on a school bus and leave my mom. And I just remember so much about kind of that time in my life. And now I have a 5-year-old who starts kindergarten 1 week from today. So this picture is special for a lot of reasons, not just because it represents a time in my life, but it's now reminding me of a time in my daughter's life. And so when Steve and I were just having kind of a casual conversation about my daughter's upcoming school year, we had that light bulb moment. We were like, oh my gosh, this is such a big milestone for families, whether a child's going into kindergarten or, any other grade, that we thought this could be a great webinar. So Steve, go ahead and tell our guests a little bit about this time of change and transition.
Right. To kind of add to what Johanna said, obviously I've seen my own 3 daughters go through, the years of school and on to college, and 41 years since my college, it's been transitioning into new school years in my professional capacity as a school counselor, and I've just seen just the number of different emotions and the nervousness, the excitement, kind of the combination of both. As Johanna's thinking about her kindergartner, I'm thinking about my neighbor girl who's headed off to the honors program at Creighton. So I've kind of tried to put my thinking together on just observations that I've had regardless of the age. And it is a normal transition time. I feel like State Fair just kicks off, okay, it's getting real. I was in a school this morning and there was all the staff starting up their school year. So it's inevitable, and we're excited to kind of talk about some ways to make that go well.
Yeah, and it looks like several people have chimed in as to kind of what stage or age their kids are. And so we have a lot of middle schoolers and some high schoolers. So 16 years old, 17-year-old going into senior year at high school next week, an 11-year-old going into 7th grade, an elementary age student. We have another kindergarten parent, 8 years and 11 years old. So it sounds like some families have multiple kids going into the school year and some just have one at this point.
Great.
As we were coming up with our kind of outline for today, Steve came up with 5 different talking points, and they all start with the letter R, which I really like. And the first one is realize. So Steve, talk to us about what we need to realize as we have this transition.
Right. Yeah. What I really was landing on there is just validation that the emotions are real, and that it's normal. It's absolutely normal to be worried, to be nervous, to be unsure. I was listening to Johanna's podcast, Emotion Well, and I was listening to one of our colleagues, Ashley. By the way, subscribe to Emotion Well, you guys. It's really cool. But I heard Ashley say something that really resonated with me. I don't think there's a single listener that would disagree with this, you know, but I think sometimes we accidentally say things that are not validating. We have a tendency to say, oh, there's no reason to worry, or you don't need to be nervous, or untrue guarantees. It's going to be really easy. It's going to be fine. When reality, we're going to probably be more supportive when we say, yeah, I understand that you're nervous. I understand that you are unsure. And the other part of realization is that the things they're worrying about could be true. We might accidentally say, oh, I bet your friends will all be the same and excited to see you. Well, the reality is maybe some of the friendships have changed. So we have to be careful that we don't promise how the school year is going to go, and we just validate. And the vocabulary part, I think, is important too, because as we're having those conversations, it's a great opportunity, depending on the developmental level of your child, to kind of expand that vocabulary. Is the nervousness more excitement? Is the nervousness actual terrified? Try to add some different shades of emotion words into the vocabulary, which is just a great life skill anyway, as you're kind of moving on.
Yeah, and so we're going to give some examples of the ways that you can validate and expand your vocabulary shortly here. I wanted to share my own story with my daughter, who is starting kindergarten next week. And so last night, as we do many nights, we just kind of talk about, how the day went. We talk about life. It's my favorite part of my day with my daughter. And she has a lot of questions. I think most kids have a lot of questions. My daughter tends to want to be very prepared for things. She likes to kind of know what to expect. And so some of the questions she was asking me last night, I didn't have answers to. So the questions were, will I have a locker? Will I share a desk? Will my teacher be a boy or a girl? She wanted to know if the bathrooms would have locks on the door. I said, gosh, these are really good questions, and we are going to get to do a tour of your school on Monday, just 2 days before you're going to start there. And so we're going to get all those questions answered. And I have been doing some kind of background work. I found out that all of the kindergarten teachers in her school are women, so I was able to answer that question. I don't know about the desk situation, the locks on the bathroom door, but this is my child. I think, there are people listening who can probably relate to this, and there are people who, have kids that might not ask that type of question. But point being, there's a lot of questions that come up, and sometimes, like Steve said, it can be easy to just say, oh, I don't know, or don't worry about that, but we want to validate that this is a big transition. And in my situation with my child, the more prepared she can be, the better it is for her, and honestly, the better it is for me, because I'm kind of wired that way too. I like to be prepared and have that information. So let's rehearse. These are some things that, and actually one of these came up last night too. She asked, what if I oversleep and get to school late? So, these are things that you maybe hear. I'm nervous. What if I get lost? What if I can't find the bus? What if I get on the wrong bus? What if I oversleep? Who will I sit with? Maybe they're just making statements. They're not asking questions, like no one will like me, or I won't make the team. I don't know anyone. Transitioning to a new building is huge. And so for a lot of kindergartners, they don't know anyone. If they're transitioning from a daycare center or a pre-K program that's outside of the public schools, they might not know anyone. We know that a lot of times in junior high, or I guess it's called middle school. I called it junior high growing up, but sometimes in middle school, those feed into different high schools, or elementary schools feed into different middle schools. So the friendship questions come up a lot. So Steve, talk through, what on this kind of resonates with you from your time as a
Right.
counselor. What are some of the things that you heard a lot of?
Yeah, I would say, there's really two categories of rehearsing to kind of get ready. And Johanna made great reference to one of those, which is if your school offers an open house, if you have a chance to go in and walk the building, to practice the schedule, how to get from room to room, do as much of that as possible to actually rehearse that part. But there's also the rehearsing of the emotional situations, like the friendships that may have changed. And um, a lot of my career, well, actually, all of my career was I was coaching sports teams, and it's a lot like doing a scouting report. You do your very best to find out the kind of things that your opponent might do. You do in school, you do your best to help your kids be prepared. But like with Johanna's Audrey, you're not going to know every possible thing that might come at you. So in that rehearsal, you're just kind of brainstorming with your child. Well, if this comes up, here's some things that you might be prepared to do. If the table where your friends are all sitting, because that, by the way, that's one of the scariest points of middle school, is that first look into the lunchroom and you've got your tray. Where am I going to go sit? Rehearse that. If you can't find your friends, here's what you could do. You could look for a table with an open spot or somebody that you kind of recognize. Rehearse with them how they could start a conversation, how to bring up a greeting with somebody that you really don't know that well, how to engage in just small talk, if you will. The it's just a great chance of kind of passing along your coping skills, your to their toolbox. Share some of the things that um, you've lived as an adult, and prepare them for what might happen, but also the reality that there might be some things that come up that you weren't expecting. In fact, it's almost like when I helped two of my daughters with their weddings, there was basically the realization that there's probably something that's going to come up that we're not prepared for. It's kind of like with this first day of school. So when you come home after that first day, let's talk about something that maybe you weren't prepared for, and you kind of continue the rehearsing, continue the practice. And the physical part, like I said, the maps, uh, walking the building, and the emotional situations that might come up. But the underpinning of it all is you're not going to really know until you get there and you've had a few days of school. And that's the reality that we have as adults. We can kind of see it through our lens, that we know that after a few days it will get easier. But I think we just have to ride that emotional roller coaster as we kind of rehearse.
Yeah, and then these are just some ideas for you to think about when your kids make comments like, I'm nervous, I'm scared, I'm confused. So these are some of the things that Steve and I came up with that can help you better respond, right? So Steve, can you just talk briefly on the importance of normalizing the feelings that they experience, and maybe why or how you would say something like, I'm so glad you shared that with me,
Right.
to
You're
increase
just built.
that dialogue.
Yeah. You're the whole concept of working through this tough moment is to create this communication pattern that there's going to be future situations, there's going to be future things that are going to come up, and I will continue to kind of be one of your resources to get through that. I like to use the terminology of, you're preparing to respond so you don't have to resort to reacting. Because when you react, when you're not prepared and you haven't kind of conceptualized it, there's a tendency to react with anger or resentment, or the emotions of sadness and disappointment about friendship changes could easily resort to something that you say or do that you didn't intend. Whereas if you were practiced ahead of time and you were almost preparing yourself for something unexpected might come up, here's what you do. Um, the one that really hit me is, how can we plan for this? You do as much planning as possible, knowing that there's going to be new things that we're going to plan for. Um, I have my own story to tell if you're comfortable with me doing that, Johanna, and it kind of has to do with basketball. This is one where I failed, and a lot of what we do as parents is we kind of learn from our own failures. And one of my daughters, as she was entering ninth grade basketball season, so it wasn't even the start of the school year, she had heard these rumblings that some of the other ninth graders were going to get called up to varsity. And she was really nervous and really anxious about that. What if that happens and I don't get called up to the varsity team? And she's been with these teammates forever. And her mom and I kind of made the mistake of saying, "Oh, I bet that won't happen. I'm sure there'll at least be a few practices where everybody gets to prove themselves." And so we didn't really rehearse. We didn't really rehearse what if that happens. And sure enough, first day of ninth grade practice, the bus brings them over to my middle school where I was working, and she popped her head into my office door with tears in her eyes, and she said, "Dad, it's really true. It really happened." And some of her teammates were not even at practice on that very first day and had been called up to varsity. And I felt terrible because she had to leave and go to practice with all these emotions. And I wish I would have kind of rehearsed with her. Well, if that happens, here's how you might be able to navigate it. So be patient with yourself as parents, and in your coaching your kids, realize that there'll be times where you wish you would have done something differently, and just be honest. Well, I wish I would have known to tell you this, or I wish I would have learned from that experience. And then as the next child comes along and the next child, you kind of hone your skills with future kids. Anyway, thanks for letting me share that example.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about that, being as the parent, relaying information, experiences. Why is it important, Steve, to remember your experience, but not to relive them alongside?
Right. Yeah, that is huge, and it goes beyond just the start of the school year. But I think, we're role models for our kids, and sometimes we hesitate to let them know that we get nervous, that we also worry, that we are unsure when we're not familiar with upcoming situations, and it's okay to verbalize that. And it's especially helpful if you can tell your own success stories. Well, what's helped me in the past when I felt that way is to, and even if you failed, like the story I just told, even if you failed, you could even start with, well, I wish I would have known when I was your age, what I wish I would have known. But it's a delicate balance because you don't want to totally relive your own issues. And when you said middle school, Johanna, that a lot of our listeners are parents of middle schoolers, it brought back a very clear memory of mine, because I was in middle school for most of my career, and I'd watch the parents tour their kids around the school, and I would watch them try to navigate the lockers, and I could pick up vividly that the parents were actually more nervous than the kids were. I knew the kids would be okay because I've lived it for so many years. I knew all the teachers would be out in the hallways helping, but for that parent, they were literally struggling with their own anxieties and worries so much that it was like spilling over, even to the point of where I might have a parent say to me, "Now, she really gets nervous about new situations," just right in front of the kid. And it almost would like set up this continuation of the next generation of nervousness and the next generation of of anxiety. So role model, relay your experiences, but try not to relive the worst of your your issues.
Yes. And so we were in my office preparing for this, and you said something like, be their anchor. You're
Yeah,
rusty. Be their rusty anchor. And then I thought, well, we should be their trusty and rusty anchor. And
yeah,
so just, as your children transition into the school year, they're going to have a lot of variables and there's going to be a lot of things changing. But, if you can be their constant, if they can have the parents, grandparents, someone they're close to be kind of that trusty and rusty anchor, that will definitely help them. Let's talk about resetting routines, Steve. I'm currently, I'm I'm not dreading it, but elementary school starts pretty early in Des Moines, and preschool drop off is pretty flexible. So,
right. Yeah,
we've already set the alarm clocks back. I'm getting up about 20 minutes earlier, in anticipation for her needing to get up earlier. And so just for me, I need some alone time in the morning. I need 20 to 30 minutes to myself to practice self-care. And so I had to adjust my routine. But talk a little bit about the importance of getting in routines, not just for the kids and the students, but as far as the families and parents go too.
right. Yeah, you've kind of nailed the timing issue is just that's kind of a given that we're all going to adjust to wake up times and probably go to bed times and all those issues. But I would also offer to families, think about other things in your family dynamics that probably need a reset. And we've always known we need to do this or that, but we've never found the right time. Maybe it's having a family meal. Once a week, we're going to all sit down together. We're going to put our phones and devices away, and we're just going to really enjoy each other. Maybe we're going to have a family game night. Maybe we need to change some routines about the way that all of us, get buried in our social media and our devices when we're all together. So consider the start of the school year that point on the calendar that you can circle, and you can say we're all going to do something better as a family. It's not just you as my son or my daughter, you're going to change this, you're going to change this. Use it as an opportunity to improve your personal habits, but also maybe your family dynamics too. Maybe it's communications. We're going to do a better job of just checking in with each other. We're going to do a better job of you know, talking about our highs and lows. So consider it as a chance to push the reset button for pretty much anything that you individually or maybe as a family need to do.
And let's also talk about why it's important to remain in this mindset. I think it's easy to go into any new life experience, whether it's a new job, a new school year, a new calendar year, with this enthusiasm and this, proactive approach. But why is it important, Steve, to then remain with that kind of mindset as the school year progresses?
Yeah, amen. That's it's a great opportunity to stay connected. And for example, I'll use as an example, it's easy to go to the open house or the back or the before school starts events, but make sure you go to back to school night. Make sure that you go to parent teacher conferences. When the fall sports kick off and they have the gathering with all the coaches, or the winter sports. So, let's move into the middle of the year. Go attend those. Even when your high schooler says, it's dumb, nobody else's parents go to it. You be the one that remains connected, that kind of remains plugged in. It won't be easy. It's just like with any change of habits. It's easy to fall back out of routines, but hold true to keeping a good attitude, keeping the communications going, holding on to that family meal, all those kind of things. Stay involved, stay plugged in, get to know who your students' teachers are. Find out who is becoming their advocate. You talked about beginning of the school year, you're going to try to find some adults there that you really connect with. Keep that conversation going as the year goes on. Has it changed? Have you found any new adults now that it's the second semester classes? Just remain involved with just plugging in with the emotional ups and downs of their school life.
Yeah, and the other thing Steve and I were brainstorming is asking more than how was your day. So here's just some different things that we came up with. What are you proud of today? Did you notice anyone struggling? And that one is kind of, can they develop empathy? You know, are they able to notice, you know, social cues, or are they able to notice that other people are experiencing some of the same things that they're experiencing too? Tell me about the most exciting part of your day. Tell me about the best part of your day. Tell me about your least favorite or the worst part of your day. So, you know, it doesn't always have to be, what was your favorite part of the day? Because we can learn a lot from that, but we can also learn a lot from the opposite of the favorite and the best. What are you looking forward to tomorrow, and how can I support you? And then Steve mentioned celebrating process over product, focusing on how hard your children worked. Be proud always, not just when they excel. Can you give an example from your time as a coach when maybe you use this with your own kids or with your athletes?
Yeah, I when Johanna was going through those questions, that really resonated, product or process over product, and that was so much a part of my coaching, and I think, you know, parenting, that we are really proud of when you struggle. We're proud of your efforts all the time. We have a tendency, and once again, we don't mean any harm, but we have a tendency to save that word proud for the celebrations when things do. I'm so proud of you for winning. I'm so proud of you for that award. I'm so proud of you for, you know, this great accomplishment. But I think it's really important to be proud of our kids and their work through tough things, proud of their resiliency. I'm proud of how you're handling this tough situation and how your friends have seemed to abandon you. I'm proud of how you are navigating that. I'm proud of how you are noticing the needs of others. And it's something that, you know, all of our listeners are thinking that, but it's just one of those little mistakes that sometimes we make when we say, we save that word proud for the big times, the big celebrations. With my athletes, I would sometimes say, especially after failure or a loss, I'm still proud of you. Or I'd tell them before the event, I'm going to be the same level of pride after this event is over. That's not going to change. As long as you give your best effort, I'm still going to be this level of proud. I'm literally holding my hands up right now as I say this. That stays the same. But what will go up and down is your emotions. And when you do well, I'll be happy with you. And when you lose or you don't do as well as you wanted to, I'll be sad with you, but my proud stays the same. So that's just kind of a overall theme of just kind of parenting, I think.
Yeah, and then we also just wanted you to remember, look for the good in schools, be an ally, find an ally in the school, and encourage your kids to do the same. Like Steve said, a lot of times we start the school year with a lot of that proactive communication, and we kind of lose sight of what's going on. And so get to know your kids' allies, you know, connect with people that can help you, and ask about your student assistance program. So Employee and Family Resources provides student assistance or SAP programs in a large number of schools across the state of Iowa. And, you know, if you don't have EFRs, it's possible that you have an SAP with another organization, but an SAP can be a great resource for parents and families just to help with these big transitions in life and, you know, things that are going on at home. So if there's, you know, some changes in the family, your SAP can help with that too. So SAP doesn't have to be specifically related to what's going on with your child at school. It can be related to anything going on with your child or your family as it relates to emotional well-being. You're listening because you have access to EFR's EAP benefits. Don't forget you have 24-hour phone support, in-person or virtual counseling sessions available, financial, legal, elder and child care consultation and resources, identity theft, and life coaching. We also have an app you can download in the Apple or Google App Stores. Just search EFR, and we're one of the first few, I think we're maybe the third one down. It's a free app. You can stay connected to upcoming webinars, past webinars. You can listen to the Emotion Well podcast, as Steve mentioned. Steve's actually been a guest. Is it once or twice, Steve? I think twice.
Might have been twice, yeah.
Yeah, you've been on. You talked about our student assistance program and resources for students once, and then the other time I believe you talked about parenting.
Yep.
Parenting your grown daughters.
Shared all my mistakes.
Yeah, so definitely give those episodes a listen. Any questions can be submitted to the chat, and Steve or I will answer them. But this, this has been so helpful for me as the mom of an incoming kindergartner, and I know it's helpful to other people. And as a former, school counselor, Steve, is there any, kind of last bit of wisdom you want to leave with our listeners as far as taking advantage of some of those resources within schools?
Just consider it a journey, and consider it you stepping from being in front of your child and leading their way through life, depending on their developmental age, to stepping over to the side as they kind of journey through elementary school, to symbolically standing behind them as they navigate high school and on into college. The journey is theirs, and you are there to support them. So we wish you the best, and consider us as a support, if, like Johanna said, if you have our SAP, or if there's another support at your district.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today, Steve. I'm sure I'll be reaching out to you next week.
Sounds good, Johanna. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.